Iowa's News Now Sports brings you black and gold glory. Your all-access pass to all things Hawkeyes. This is Eye on the Hawks Bowl Special.
Yeah, we still got a chance to win 11 games. Winning 10's a big deal, and it's a big deal at any school, I think. But winning 11's even more special, so we got that opportunity. Let's shoot for that and not leave anything out there.
Iowa looks to put a bow on its season, capture the rare 11th victory, and ring the new year in the right way. Welcome to the Eye on the Hawks Citrus Bowl Special presented by Fareway. I'm Jett Beachum, and with me as always is Hawkeye Nation's Rob Howe to break it all down. Let's go bowling. Before we dive into the Citrus Bowl, we'll look at how the Hawkeyes got here. Iowa began the season ranked 18th in the AP poll and quickly rose to number 2 in the country thanks to a 6-0 record that included ranked wins over Indiana, Iowa State, and Penn State. But a 2-game losing streak crushed a potential CFP run and put their Big Ten title hopes in jeopardy. Iowa didn't flinch though, winning 4 straight, securing their first spot in the conference championship since 2015. With a berth in the Rose Bowl on the line, Iowa lost to Michigan in dominant fashion and received a bid to the Citrus Bowl in Orlando.
To earn a bowl bid is really significant. It's important to us in our program. It's important to our players, and I think it's really important to our fans also. So the way we look at it, it's still a pretty big deal. It's just one more chance to be together as a football team. Opportunity to play another game, that's always a good thing.
Now, Iowa began the year ranked 18th and finished 17th, but what a wild journey it was. What about this regular season sticks out to you, Rob?
I think we could go back to what we've talked about most of the year on the show, Jett. It's how good Iowa's defense was, how good Iowa was on special teams, and then the offensive struggles. And that was kind of, I think, illustrated the most in that Big Ten championship game where they just could not get anything going. And that, I think, is really, when they head into this bowl game, really what they're trying to figure out. What they're looking towards next year to say, okay, what can we do offensively to be better?
Yeah, and again, it's a special year. Anytime you win 10 games, it doesn't happen a lot in Iowa. Kirk Ferentz, it's 7 times in his 23 years he's been here. Sticking out to me is games like Iowa, Penn State. I know Penn State didn't end up being the team that we all thought they were, but that was the loudest atmosphere I've ever been a part of in any college football game. Iowa's trip to the Citrus Bowl marks its first since 2005. In between, the Hawkeyes have made 7 trips to the Sunshine State for various bowl games, going 3 and 4. Named the Capital One Bowl back then, that game on New Year's Day in 2005 delivered one of the most memorable finishes in Hawkeye history, as Drew Tate hit Warren Holloway on a last-second Hail Mary to beat the defending national champion LSU Tigers, who were coached by a guy named Nick Saban. Now, not to date you, but you were on the Hawkeye beat back then, Rob. Does that go down as one of your all-time favorite memories?
Oh, without question. And I think it is, when you think about Kirk Ferentz's run here, he may have had bigger wins just in terms of the magnitude, whether it be for a Big Ten championship or whatever. But this game was one that Hawkeye fans will remember forever because it was so improbable, and the layers to it. Warren Holloway, guy who just kind of worked his way up and just was a special teams dynamo. It really encapsulated what Iowa football is about. Guy makes a great play on his final play as an Iowa Hawkeye. Very improbable situation to happen. You beat LSU, you beat Nick Saban. I think it's up there, but in terms of finishes, it's number 1 for me.
Now, this year's matchup doesn't lack any flair. For the very first time, Iowa will face 25th ranked Kentucky, coached by former Hawkeye football player Mark Stoops. With the matchup, Iowa head coach Kirk Ferentz will complete a hat trick of sorts, having already coached against Mark's brothers and former Hawkeyes Bob and Mike. At Iowa, all 3 Stoops brothers were defensive backs, wore the number 41, and earned first-team Big Ten honors.
They're a great family, and what Mark has done at Kentucky, is very impressive, because if you look historically at that program, you'd have to go back a ways to find somebody that's had that kind of consistency with the level of performance that they've been at in a tough conference. So that speaks a lot about him. But just knowing him as a player, just like Mike and Bob, you could tell this guy, if he chose to coach, he could be really good at it. And certainly that's been proven out.
There are a lot of noteworthy Iowa alums, but are there many families that define the Hawkeyes more than those Stoops brothers, Rob?
No, I don't think so, Jett. And I think a big reason for that is that they kind of transcend the Hayden Fry and Kirk Ferentz era that ties it all together. You know, we have the history of Bob potentially being the Iowa coach and then Kirk getting that job and Bob going to Oklahoma. And I just think they were scrappy guys from Ohio, not guys that would hop off the film, you know, for, you know, speed and size. They're underdog guys. And I think that, again, I said that earlier about Holloway, but it kind of encapsulates Iowa football. Guys that are going to maybe not be the cookie cutter types, but play their butts off and play really good and really hard. And when they hit you, you remember it.
Yeah. And they were part of those Hayden Fry teams of the heyday that really brought Iowa to the map. And more so than anything, then you go with the Kirk Ferentz, you go with the Hayden Fry coaching tree. I mean, they also all were GAs, you know, after their years at Iowa. So, man, what a family and what an impact they've made, not only in Iowa, but college football as a whole. Coming up next, we take a look at the Iowa depth chart and what you'll see when the Hawkeyes swarm the field in Florida when Eye on the Hawks returns.
Opportunity I probably haven't had in a little while, just because some obstacles came up along the way. So I'm going to trust it. I'm doing everything I can now to make sure I'm ready to go by game time.
Now, as we've grown accustomed to seeing, teams are rarely at full strength for bowl season as players with NFL potential and aspirations elect to opt out, whether it's to avoid injuries, start draft training, or some other reason. That is the case for Iowa as junior running back Tyler Goodson declared for the NFL draft and in the process is foregoing the Citrus Bowl. Over his 3-year career, Goodson amassed over 2,500 rushing yards, good for 10th all-time, and was a 2-time All-Big Ten selection. A massive hit to an already struggling Hawkeye offense.
You know, obviously he's a fun player to play with, but you know, it's kind of next man in mentality, and you know, you're going to have to block for whatever running back is going to be running the ball for us January 1st.
Ivory looks to be healthy. It's the best he's been in quite some time. That's good news. And then I'm anxious to see Gavin and LaShawn both play. I think they both have been doing a really good job.
Full circle moment, like you said. I mean, for everything to come around like this and then me end up getting this opportunity in a big bowl game like this is special and something I'm working really hard for.
Now in place of Goodson, Ivory Kelly Martin will get the start at running back with Gavin Williams backing him up. Kelly Martin hasn't started a game since 2018 and hasn't had a carry since he fumbled on the 1-yard line and Iowa's loss to Wisconsin. Is this a cause for concern, Rob?
I don't think so, Jett. I mean, you look at this, and I kind of like this. This is a guy who's kind of paid his dues in the program. He's had some tough moments. He's had a lot of injuries. He's been one of the main team leaders on this team. Give him a shot. I know you want to win the Citrus Bowl, but it's not life or death. It's not going to change this season whether you win or lose this game. Let him go out and try to go out on a high note. And I don't think it's going to be a situation where he gets 25 to 30 carries. Yeah. This is going to be probably close to an even split. And we may even see some LaShawn Williams because you're trying to look forward to next year as well. Yeah. But also maybe giving a little bit of a pat on the back to a guy who's been a really good team player.
I really like that take. I'm not even going to lie. I mean, you know, just to see what Ivory Kelly Martin's been through, obviously he was a starter for a while, but then you have guys like Tyler Goodson and Mekhi Sargent kind of, you know, come on and into their own. And so, you know, he kind of took that back burner. He got more of his role back this season, dealt with some struggles, but I mean, you talk about a guy that's persevered, a guy that stayed with the Iowa Hawkeye program. You know, Ivory Kelly Martin's just a perfect example. And then again, we get to see a little bit more. You mentioned LaShawn Williams, Gavin Williams as well. So this is a really great basis for almost kind of like the old guard, but also the new guard of next season. That wasn't the only thing Iowa's depth chart revealed. After being replaced in the second half of the Big Ten championship game, Spencer Petrus has again been listed as the starting quarterback ahead of Alex Padilla. Petrus has split time with Padilla ever since his injury in the second half against Wisconsin. The junior will be making his first start in a bowl game on January 1st.
As the year goes on, and even you look back in the spring, fall camp, we got to have 2 quarterbacks ready to go at all times because injuries happen. Like we've seen, injuries have happened. So yeah, and I feel comfortable with both quarterbacks in there, and they feel comfortable, running the offense.
Now, Alex Padilla has played in all 6 games since Petrus' injury. Does the move to start Spencer surprise you a bit, and do you expect to see Alex at some point?
Full disclosure here, I stayed completely away from social media yesterday when this depth chart came out because I knew however it would go, it would cause a reaction. And I'm not surprised. I think unless Spencer Petrus was hurt, he was going to start this game. He started the Michigan game. I don't think either quarterback had a good day. I'm not going out and breaking any news there in that game. But I think we do see both guys. You know, it's hard to know. Are the coaches completely in on Spencer Petrus, and what they've seen from Alex Padilla isn't enough? Is this a game that they look as an opportunity to evaluate both guys? What's going on in practice? How are the reps being split? A lot of unknowns in this, Jett. But I think ideally you'd want to give both guys a look in this game.
And I think you have to, especially, again, looking kind of towards the future. You know, if one guy gets rubbed the wrong way, you know, they always have a chance to move, and we've seen that with the transfer portal. And both of these guys, again, Spencer's just a junior, Alex is just a sophomore. So it'll be interesting to see. I think Alex does play, whether it's to come in, you know, for Spencer Petrus because he's struggling, or whether it's to come in because there are certain packages and they want to play him this quarter or what. But I think both guys will play, and I think, you know, maybe we'll see if one has success with the other that they might be named a starter, maybe even headed into the offseason. Now, as expected, Iowa will take the field with a somewhat depleted secondary, as both Matt Hankins and Terry Roberts were not listed in the depth chart. Senior Riley Moss and sophomore Jamari Harris will start at the outside corner spots against a Kentucky passing attack that averaged 225 passing yards per game.
Coach Parker trusts the dudes that are out there that he's put out there, and Jamar has shown that, and you know the rest of the DBs have shown that throughout the season. So it sucks that someone goes down, but as time goes, you know, it kind of heals and it kind of brings together the group.
Now, it's been pretty much a given that Hankins wouldn't play, but Roberts is a bit of a surprise because he did play in the Big Ten championship game. Harris has played pretty well after being thrown in there late in the season. What do you make of the secondary headed into the Citrus Bowl?
Yeah, we're kind of left to speculate here a little bit, Jett. As you said, Roberts did appear in the Big Ten championship game. He was the next man in when Riley Moss was hurt. Then he got hurt. Maharis has played well. If Roberts is healthy, I would certainly expect to see him on special teams, and potentially if you go some sub packages where you need extra defensive backs, I wouldn't be surprised to see him there as well. As you said, it's curious that he's not on the depth chart, but it's maybe something we don't know yet. Maybe it is a re-injury or something like that.
I think the one worry is if another one of these guys gets hurt, I mean, you're kind of looking at, you know, kind of a bunch of guys that haven't played too much. I mean, you've seen some flashes, obviously, from Quinn Schulte this season. He played a bit. Cooper DeJean, you know, we've seen him on special teams. What does he do maybe if he's thrown there in the corner spot? You got Xavier Williams, the UNI transfer, who really hasn't seen the field at all all year unless it was on special teams. So if one of these guys unfortunately goes down, you know, you're looking at someone who hasn't played a whole lot and is going to be tested by, you know, a pretty decent Kentucky passing attack. Coming up next, we break down what you can expect to see from Big Blue Nation when the Eye on the Hawks Citrus Bowl special returns.
Obviously a great Kentucky football team, you know, to do some of the things that they're able to do in the SEC. A tough conference, you know, they have an opportunity to get 10 wins. I don't know how many times a Kentucky team has, you know, been able to do that over the years.
When you look at Iowa and Kentucky, you see two teams with similar pasts. Like the Hawkeyes, the Wildcats opened the season on a 6-game win streak and suffered a string of losses, only to rebound with a multi-game winning streak to close out the year. For Big Blue Nation, it all starts on offense with the big boys up front. A finalist for the Joe Moore Award given annually to the most outstanding offensive line unit, the Wildcats' O-line paved the way for a rushing attack that averaged over 5.5 yards per carry, 4th best in the nation.
Their offensive line, Reese would tell you, reminds them of Michigan. You know, they're really good up front. They're very veteran, physical, strong, execute really well. They got good skill guys.
I think their O-line helps them a lot, just the same way Michigan did, and it opens up their run game, their pass game, and allows their playmakers to make plays. And I think that's something that we're definitely going to have to defend against this week as well.
Kentucky is a team that likes to control the clock and does a good job of it. They converted 51% of their third downs this season, the 5th best mark nationally. What stands out to you as the matchup when Iowa's on defense, Rob?
I would say, Jett, it's the balance of Kentucky's offense. I think if you're the Iowa coaches and you look at this Kentucky offense on film, you're pretty envious because this is kind of what Iowa's looking to do, have that balance. As Jett mentioned earlier, I think it's 225 passing. I think it's 205 rushing a game on offense. That's balance. There's also an interesting connection here that Will Levis played at Penn State and Iowa faced him last year. Wan'Dale Robinson from Nebraska is now at Kentucky and the leading receiver. They've got a 1,000-yard rusher in Christopher Rodriguez. They've got a 1,000-yard receiver in Wan'Dale Robinson, and Will Levis completes about 66% of his passes. Very efficient on offense.
Yeah, this isn't the Will Levis they saw against Penn State last year, was it?
No, not at all. He's grown, and that's what you would expect from a college football player, a guy who develops. And I think he's a better fit in this offense maybe than he was in the Penn State offense.
When it comes to defense, Kentucky has held its own, ranking in the top quarter of all college football teams in terms of total and scoring defense. The Wildcats feature a stout front seven led by defensive end Joshua Pascal and linebacker J.J. Weaver, who led the unit in tackles for a loss, interceptions, and sacks.
They have some really good players that have a really good motor and play hard for the full 60. And linebackers just can move around really well. So it's definitely something we're game planning for right now.
They play physical, they're big, and we're at the end of the day we're going to be ready to go, and it starts now with our preparation. Whatever team's going to be most prepared and take their time down, and Florida Sirius is going to be the team that ends up winning.
You don't see this a lot with winning teams, but Kentucky is the third worst program in the country in terms of turnover margin. They forced only 9 total in 12 games. So how has this unit held up so well this season, Rob?
I think it's just been fundamentally sound, and I think, again, if you look at this team, it looks like a Big Ten team. It's really good at stopping the run. It doesn't give up a lot of points. I think it gives up about 22 points a game. Iowa gives up 19 points a game, so you can kind of compare those two. But really the key is stopping the run and putting teams in disadvantageous positions offensively, behind the sticks, as we like to say. I think that's where they make their hay. And then they also, tackles for loss, sacks, things like that, kind of mitigate the lack of turnovers. But that's going to be an interesting part of this game, the turnover battle, because we've seen how beneficial that's been for the Hawkeyes this year.
And I guess it's not much of a surprise that they look like a Big Ten team when their head coach is Mark Stoops, right?
Correct.
Up next, who will reign supreme in the Sunshine State? We give our final takes when Eye on the Hawks returns.
What's like 30 degrees Celsius in Fahrenheit, like 80 degrees or something like that. Yeah, so I mean, you can't not enjoy it when it's that hot, and hopefully there's no rain or anything like that. But I'm just looking forward to enjoying the experience. I know it's going to remind me of home.
It's time for predictions. Both Iowa and Kentucky enter the Citrus Bowl winners of 3 straight bowl games, but only one of these teams is going to leave the Sunshine State with their streak still intact. Depending on where you look, Iowa is a 2.5 to 3 point underdog. Do you expect it to be close, and how do you see this one playing out, Rob?
Definitely see this as a close game, and I think it's going to be typical of what we've seen of the Iowa games this year, more lower scoring. I think Kentucky's fine playing that style. I don't see one of these teams getting into the mid-30s to 40 points in this game. I think the winner's going to be probably mid-20s, like 24-20. I like Iowa. Bowl games are so interesting because are both teams engaged? Is this a step down for one of the teams, a disappointment for one of the teams? I don't think that's the case here. I think both of these teams really want to win, so I don't think it's going to be a lack of trying from one side or one team coming out flat. I think it's going to be a balanced game. I think it's a 4-quarter game. I like the Hawkeyes 24-20.
Do you? 24-20. I would have agreed with you, but I will say the Goodson news, it does make me pause a bit. I do have to kind of take a step back. Look at how kind of important he was in that offense. And so I think that's going to come down to really what's going to change the game for me. I'm going to have to disagree with you. It's going to be a close game. I think it'll be a 3-point game. I was going more with 24-21 in favor of Kentucky. So still really, really close to what you had. But I'm going to take the Wildcats in this one, unfortunately, for the Hawkeyes. That's going to do it for us in our Citrus Bowl special. Thank you for tuning in to Eye on the Hawks all year long. For all of us here, including Rob Howe, thank you for watching. We'll see you in Orlando, and see you next year.